Welcome again, everybody. My name is Macy Her. I am a Wausau native. Nhớ rằng rất là nó cũng là Macy Her. Cũng như ít chuyện nhớ hồ Wausau nó. Trong sáng của các tàu lục chế. Cho khách chơi nó cũng ít chuyện lục lục. Tại vì nó cũng chỉ nhớ hồ nó là. Tất nhiên cũng nhớ trên trang Milwaukee. Và mình sẽ chơi cũng nó dễ lên các tàu chơi của tôi. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here today. Again, I'm Macy Her. I am a Wausau native, a proud Wausau native. It's always wonderful to be back here in Wausau. And I want to thank Yi Lang for inviting me to be the MC today.
I did not get the memo that I wasn't allowed to say Jim or Marty Harris's name, so you might hear it. Sorry, not sorry. Now, Zhang, thank you so much, Jim and Marty Harris, for creating this amazing opportunity to bring us together today. It is truly an expression of how we can be a community for all. A successful community looks to the future while remembering what our collective history has taught us. Earlier this week, I was listening to one of Wausau's committee meetings because another amazing retired educator, Nell Anderson, came here to share her experiences working with Hmong refugee children and families in the 80s and 90s. She helped create the ESL program in Wausau and set hundreds and hundreds of kids up for success, thanks to her efforts. We wanted to hear from her as we get ready to welcome new refugees to see how we can prepare for our new neighbors. It was only after that meeting that I found out that one of the members of the committee is himself a refugee. He was born in a refugee camp in Thailand, and the questions he was asking were related to how our community readied for him and his family. Understanding our past helps us ready for that future. Earlier this month, the president of the Wisconsin Lao Veterans of America, former Lieutenant Naoshu Zhang, visited me. He became a soldier as a 15-year-old as part of General Vang Pao's army during the secret war in Laos. He is currently a tireless advocate for Hmong and Lao veterans. And during his visit, he shared stories about his fellow soldiers. And he told me that several passed away over the last year, and many are still waiting for full benefits for their service to our nation. It was an important reminder that some people who fought on behalf of our nation are still working for recognition for their sacrifices they made at a very young age. Understanding our past helps us create better policies for our future. And what Jim and Marty Harris have done here with the From Laos to America Museum is to ensure that we will never forget our community's past, the very recent past of a quarter of our school district students, the collective memories of more than 10% of our neighbors. Preserving this past will ensure we recognize those contributions to our future. I have some ideas for future exhibits. I'm really excited to see displays on Supervisor Zhang and Lo and Alder Tao, but I absolutely cannot wait until we're talking about Mayor Lee and Representative Mua and even Governor Yang. Wausau is so honored to be home to this kind of a museum. It's one of a kind. It boasts one of the largest collections of Lao and Hmong cultural artifacts in the country. It includes pieces you can't find even in Laos anymore. I read about a pony backpack that Jim said took him 7 years to find after seeing it in an old photo. And he also has a 100-year-old rice grinder. We are so lucky to have this museum that helps stitch together the Hmong community's rich cultural history here in Wausau so that students, families, and visitors can learn from the past while figuring out what their future holds. So thank you, Jim and Marty. Thank you to the Hmong American Center, and thank you to everyone for helping us celebrate this happy day.
All right, thank you so much. Had a little bit of scare, almost thought we weren't going to make it on time, but I'm so excited that we were able to catch the presentation, to hear Mayor Rosenberg's speech, and I just want to say how much of an honor it is to be back, one in Wausau, but to be back again for this wonderful celebration. Again, I'm Mandela Barnes, proudly serving as Lieutenant Governor. Got to thank Yi Ling-jong for the invite. As always, I'm glad to be able to partner with you to talk about any way we can move this state forward, whether it's the Community for All work that you're doing or whether it's just the work in general that you do to bring equity to the region, to this area, to the city, and to this county. I'm really excited to be a part of the opening of this important exhibit. I want to thank Jim and Marty. Apparently I wasn't supposed to say their names. So I want to thank Jim and Marty for all the work that they've done to create and also the work to preserve this collection. I also want to thank you for your commitment to being allies to the Hmong community here in Wausau and all across the state of Wisconsin for that matter. It's important because this commitment, it will ensure that our future generations will be able to come right here, right to Wausau, and learn about the rich history of Hmong, Laotian, and other Southeast Asian cultures. And Wausau has been and continues to be a special place for the Hmong community. From when the family of Tong Zang Tao, the first Hmong family, made Wausau their home 45 years ago, to today, where 7,000 individuals of our Wisconsin's Hmong population reside here in Marathon County, and also make up 12% of the population. And with over 50,000 Hmong people living throughout the state of Wisconsin, our state is the proud home, the proud home of the third largest Hmong population in the entire country. That is a badge that we wear very, very proudly. And the Hmong community plays a tremendous role in our state's history, our culture, and our economy, but most importantly in our livelihood, making sure that everybody who lives in this state recognizes and understands that there's a place for you here. And it can be easy for communities to not feel that way, especially in a state that has dealt with significant challenges, injustices, and inequality. But it is the fights, the perseverance, and people coming together, just like in this room today, it's showing that we can do things so much better. And not only can we have to do things much better. And that's why I jumped at the opportunity to make sure that I was here today. I'm incredibly grateful that this collection can be just yet another triumph for the Hmong community and the AAPI community at large, because a lot of what this all comes down to is understanding. There's a lack of understanding of cultures, and that's what creates some of the unfortunate realities that we deal with. And when more people can learn about more people, we'll all be better as a result for it. We know that knowledge is power. We know that knowledge is the best tool that we have in the fight against ignorance. And I'd be remiss to not acknowledge and recognize the pain of the Hmong community, along with the broader AAPI community members, with the rise in targeted attacks over the last year. And unfortunately, we still see some of that today. This reminds us that we all hold a special responsibility, a responsibility to show that togetherness is the way forward for all of us. We have a responsibility to the members of any marginalized communities in our society that continue to come under threat, to come under assault, to face racism, to face oppression, to face xenophobia, or any other thing that keeps us divided. But like I said before, we're stronger together. And that's why we have to stand up to racism and the hate that the API community that goes both reported and underreported. And I'm proud to be a part of an administration that made it its mission to be very intentional with equity, to make sure that we are intentional with our ideas and values of justice and inclusion. And I'm proud that this past April, I had the chance to visit the Hmong American Center, led by Yi Ling-jong and Mayor Katie Rosenberg, again, who are both here today, along with County Supervisor Kyle Lowe and many other local leaders, to discuss violence, to discuss the racism that's facing the Hmong community. A lot of people think that we can ignore our way out of these problems, and that could not be further from the truth. The more we turn a blind eye, the more that we act as if these instances are not occurring, the more they will occur. And I'm also proud that the governor designated May 14th as Hmong Lao Veterans Day right here in the state of Wisconsin. And it's not only important that we recognize the dedicated service of the Hmong Lao veterans who risked their lives in the Vietnam War and their families, the risk and the sacrifice that they made in coming to the U.S., it's also critical that we ensure that our communities understand these sacrifices, because many people just don't even know. many people are blind to the fact, and hopefully today can bring us one step closer to creating that cultural understanding and competence that we so desperately need in this state and in this country, because these are people who made service not just for themselves or their own family, but made those sacrifices in service for all of us, for generations to come, and that is perfectly represented by the tireless work and the allyship of people like Jim and Marty Harris that made this collection possible. This provides us, again, an opportunity to not only educate others, but to re-educate ourselves, to enrich ourselves, the people who are with us and our fellow Wisconsinites, on the rich history and the impact of Hmong, Laotian, and other Southeast Asian cultures, so that we may use this history, so that we may be able to use this culture as the foundation of all of our work moving forward. So again, I just want to say thank you all so much for having me. I want to thank you all for putting on this wonderful event. I'm so excited about the exhibit. One more thanks to Jim and Marty, to Yi, and the Hmong American Center, and to my fellow leaders, my colleagues who are here today, many of which you'll hear from shortly after. I want to thank you all for taking the chance, and want to thank you for highlighting such an important collection, and for continually standing strong, not with just our AAPI community here in Wisconsin, here in Wausau, throughout the state, but the work that you do to bring us all together, because that's what this is all about. So thank you so much for having me. Everybody have a good morning. Looking forward to the exhibit. Thanks so much.
Well, hello, Wausau. It is so great to be here today, and I just want to thank, especially with President Zhang and Li Zhang and Macy and Lada Zhang, and there's just so many incredible leaders to celebrate the museum opening from Laos to America. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Godlewski, and I have the honor of serving as your state treasurer. I actually am from right down the street in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I'm the daughter of 2 public school teachers. And something that my parents really emphasized was making sure that we understood our Hmong community members, where they came from, why they came here. And, you know, in fact, how they made our community such a great place, not just in Wisconsin, not just in Eau Claire, but in our state. In fact, you know, my dad was an adult education teacher, and he started programs that supported our Hmong community. He helped start our ESL program and helped folks in Wisconsin get their GED for better job opportunities. And I have to say that there's something special about teachers. And I'm not just saying this as the daughter of 2 public school teachers, but it's really why we're all here. And I also did not get the memo that we can't give a shout out to the Harrises. But, you know, knowing Jim as an incredible teacher and his wife, and really the why behind why they started the museum. You know, Jim, I will tell you, I actually recently got to visit the museum, thanks to Yi, and actually toured it. And learning your why about why you started it, not just because you wanted to connect, of course, with your Hmong students, but you also wanted to teach Wisconsinites about the important history, is really, really special. And it's exciting that we're standing here right in downtown Wausau celebrating the largest collection of Hmong and Laotian artifacts in the entire country. And, you know, it's what I've learned from Yi and other leaders, that this isn't just a museum. It's an important part of Wausau's community. It's a place to learn, but it's also a place to come together. And that's why it's so important that we not only preserve the history and culture, but we make sure that we all continue to learn about it. Because I believe what makes America the greatest country in the world is that we are a country of immigrants. And it's our different cultures, our different races, religions, and backgrounds that are a foundation of our nation. But yet, we know recently our neighbors have forgotten, some of them, this important value. But we should never back down from who we are, and we must always stand up for our diversity. Also, as someone who started their career at the Pentagon and in national security, I know that we owe the Hmong people a huge debt of gratitude. As many here bravely fought along the sides of the Americans during the Secret War. Hmong soldiers risked their lives to help Americans. They fought combat missions, they helped direct airstrikes, and literally gathered intelligence for us. Yet, when the U.S. pulled out of the mission in the 1970s, we left our Hmong allies behind. This is completely inexcusable. And I'm glad that we acknowledged the debt that we owed and we kept our promise eventually. And thanks to Governor Evers and many of the incredible leaders in this room, Wisconsin just last year celebrated the first Hmong Veterans Day. But look, we still have a lot to do in recognizing the sacrifices of our Hmong veterans and ensure they get the benefits and care they deserve. And that's why I think today is so important, because we have a museum that preserves and teaches the history and culture of Hmong Wisconsinites. But it also reminds us of the promises that we have made and the work that still needs to be done to fulfill those promises. Wisconsin is a great state, thanks to many contributions of the Hmong community. And I look forward to continuing to work together to make sure Wisconsin is a great state to live, to raise our family, and to learn. And so I just want to, again, thank you all for having me today, and I look forward to continuing to work together to make Wisconsin the best place. But thank you all, and congratulations on the museum opening.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Francesca Hong, and I represent the 76th Assembly District in Madison, downtown, and the East Side. I am beyond honored to be here today to share space with each and every one of you, and to Ka, and to Representative Snyder, and everyone here. I hope to have a conversation someday. There is no doubt that the richness, the goodness of our Hmong community has fundamentally changed our individual and collective Wisconsin identities. And as we see here today, the love and grace of this community has a powerful unifying factor, and Wisconsin has been made better for it. You know, I struggle to find the descriptors that adequately capture the magic of this community and my Hmong neighbors, and I'll try to express that in what I've been taught by them and what I've learned from them. From my Hmong neighbors, I've learned that representation is what we decide to make it, both on a collective level and on an individual one, and it's ultimately inspired by our shared cultures. The diverse Asian culture is often one of loss and of triumph, fear and pride, and the influence of that duality on our stories, it's profound. I've learned that representation is also community, love, and resilience. When we create our own stories from our lived experience, and we refuse to follow the narratives built on white supremacy. In the 45 years that the Hmong people have become a reflection of resilience and empathetic leadership, not despite the tremendous barriers thrown in their way, but in spite of them. They have shown us leadership is desperately needed now and in the future in the halls where I work at the Wisconsin Capitol. Many in the Hmong community and I share the experience of being a first, and I think our Hmong youth will probably find that in spaces they go into as well. If we're not a first, we may be an only or a both. And while it is both an honor and a responsibility, it is also at times deeply isolating and lonely to be the first Asian American representative in the state legislature. Yes, it's 2021 and I'm still saying that. I have, in being that first, I have sometimes felt tinges of shame that I am not a true representative of the Asian community, or I might not be representative enough. But every time I meet with Hmong youth, queer people, Hmong women, veterans, and elders, I've been welcomed and made to feel like I belong. And in that, the Hmong community has protected me from my shame. Because to be Hmong is to be proud, to be welcoming, and to lead with care. You make Wisconsin better, and you have made me better. For this and so much more, I am deeply grateful. I'm not walking off this stage without a shout out to Jim and Marty. To Jim and Marty Harris, thank you for sharing the values of partnership, of collaboration, and the importance of preservation of culture, and your truly heroic and humanitarian efforts. I can't wait to get to know you too. Thank you so much.
So next, this wonderful person is Lieutenant Na Shuo Xiong, who is the president of Wisconsin Lao Veterans of America.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Na Shuo Xiong. On behalf of the Hmong Lao Wisconsin veteran and part of the Hmong elder in the community. Today is very important for our Hmong people in the community, especially in the younger generation. Because today we come to joining to open the ceremony for the museum that is very, very important for our Hmong children in the future should understand where your great-grandparents lived in Laos and Thailand. And usually we live in a mountain. A couple days ago, I came to visit that I have emotion for those. Thank you very much for my friends, Jane Harrell. I know him work very hard for this museum successfully. Thank you, Jim. And I would like to mention a little bit about Hmong people. The Hmong people, since we know they will travel from China to Laos, Thailand, to United States. But let me tell a couple of words, very important for us. During the Vietnam War conflict, United States came to ask for my leader, General Vang Pao. He decided to cooperate with President John F. Kennedy. Finally, they give us a full mission. First, got the United States later installation in Pool Party Site 85. Second, is the Roskill United States pilots who shut down the border. Third, Black Ho Chi Minh Trail north to south. And fourth, protest of freedom and democracy. Finally, we feel, and the countries lost to the communists, they catch our king, Chao Chin-Song-Watana, and a lot of leaders. Why? Include myself, and been back to the jungle, using the United States old weapon to resist them again. We don't know how to swim to close the Mekong River to Thailand. Our children, our people die almost 100,000 in close to the Mekong River, and communist soldiers, they kill us too. Those stories, the children should know that why we come to this country. Now it's very, very important to you back to verify for that. I thank you for this year, Governor Tony Evans includes legislator, both house, make the bill to pass for us the Veteran Day, May 14. That is very, very important for us. And the author who wrote the bill and passed the both house, Representative Pat Snyder. Yeah, thank you, Pat. And thank you for Governor to sign the bill. Everybody should know that, lots of knowing that. And I get this opportunity to thank you for Yileng and Dr. Yileng and your younger generation. I usually support you, and I usually looking for your younger generation to collaboration to help the community. That's very important for our people in this country in the future. Myself, I will support you guys. And the elder people, no, we cannot do anything now because we don't have education. The body, it doesn't work. Somebody already passed away or veteran, and somebody still in a nursing home. That is not good for us. But we appreciate to fight alongside with the United States. And finally, United States bring us to this country, good opportunity for our younger children. Continue, I will support Dr. Yileng and also the younger generation in the community and other communities. I agree to support you guys. And Dr. Macy knows me for a very long time, so thank you. Yeah, now other things I would like to talk a little word directly to my U.S. Congress, Senator Tommy Bowles. I met him or heard him before, but today, 8 years ago, first day I meet you. All our veterans, now so we have a problem, the DD-214, and that's we still fight for. But every veteran in California, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and other things, yeah, I saw that you support our bill. That's thank you for very much. But I like to you keep continue because now we got a problem for DD-214. But in the future, we don't know. But we will fight for that. I appreciate when you help us. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my conclusions, thank you all our agency and community and mayor, county, and state to support our Hmong people come to resident. We will keep continuing and good American citizen and work together with the community in the future. And thank you all of you coming to today. And may God bless everyone, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Jim, Marty, I'm going to talk about you a little bit here, okay? Okay. As president of the Wausau Opportunity Zone Incorporated, on behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to extend appreciation and congratulations to Jim and Marty Harris and the greater Wausau Hmong community to celebrate this day where the From Laos to America Museum establishes a new home in Washington Square. Some time ago, I met Jim Harris and learned about the Laos to America Museum. It was not until after that visit and tour with Jim and Yileng that I became aware of the treasure and richness of culture engagement, a highly valued education resource that is From Laos to America Museum. When Jim and Yileng indicated that other communities throughout the United States had interest in securing the museum, it became abundantly clear that the Laos to America Museum, an important cultural resource, should reside in Wausau, Wisconsin, no place else. The Wausau Opportunity Zone, along with other partners, made a commitment to ensure the museum reestablish a location in our community as we took down the Wausau Center Mall. I have to tell all of you that the persistence of Jim, Marty, and Yi Leng, tremendous. To walk through and talk through the needs and moving from one location to the other. And I'll just tell all of you right now, and Jim, I think you know this, that when Jim's my neighbor now, he's right across the hall from the chamber. When I get an opportunity to introduce Jim and Marty to somebody, I do. Both of you, this whole community. I'm a better person. I'm a better human being for knowing you now and everything that you bring to me. I appreciate that. Today, the From Laos to America Museum resides across from the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. And if you didn't know it, we now serve as a host organization to the Ethiopian Community Development Council and the New Beginnings program. Proud. So what we have building there, and that part of the building is really a start of a multicultural center for the Greater Wausau community. And I'm proud to be part of that, from the chamber, from the Opportunity Zone.
Yeah, I hear you.
From the chamber, from the Opportunity Zone, Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, we're proud to be part of that. Again, congratulations, Jim, Marty, and the entire Hmong community, and thank you. Thank you to all that you do for our community and the richness, cultural diversity that you bring to Wausau. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be here with all of you and celebrate this day. I mean, it's not often that we get a chance to really look at what our community is becoming. And today is one of those days. I mean, I've been proud to be involved in this effort to bring the Laos to America Museum to this complex. I worked with Compass Properties for the last 21 years, for John and Patty Noel. Their lives have been about diversity, and we've been doing our best to build one of the most diverse blocks in central Wisconsin with Mr. Nguyen from the Reflexology Center, who doesn't speak hardly any English, from China. The Tu and Tuan from, their heritage is Vietnamese and Thai, and they have the Lemongrass restaurant downstairs. Pedro has brought Jalapenos Mexican restaurant to us, and now to celebrate the Laos to America Museum and the Hmong culture. Thank you so much for bringing that to this complex. I mean, I've had the chance to get to know Jim and Marty a little bit, and earlier this year, I saw the passion that Jim had and that Dave had when I got a call one day, and there was an incident in the mall and some damage had been done at the center. And the three of us, Dave, Jim, and I, stood at the gates in the mall with tears in our eyes and looked at some of the damage that had been done that day. But immediately, Jim changed into a plan of action of what to do. And from that moment forward, I saw passion, persistence, and patience. And so I celebrate this day with all of you. I think it's a gift to our community. It's a gift to the Hmong Center. And I'm looking forward to walking through it with each and every one of you this afternoon. And you know, Jim also reminded me that day that not only was he working to relocate the museum to this complex, he also was going to be working on gardens in the spring and this past summer. So he's a gardener who plants seeds of love and kindness, thoughtfulness. He has brought so much to all of us as an educator, and he continues to teach us every day of what we need to do to celebrate our past, celebrate the differences between us, and really remind each other what it is to be human beings. And I really have grown to love this guy. He's really something else. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and looking forward to years of working together to make this the center that we can all be so proud of. Thank you.
Well, now we know, if those who didn't know, that the Harrises are also gardeners. Not only are they gardeners, they have lots of plots. They make it their mission. So with no further ado, right now is that moment where we get to hear from Jim and Marty Harris about their why. Why? Why give so much of yourself, not only to the work of others, for others, but also to create this Laos to American Museum and to preserve it. So with no further ado, Jim and Marty Harris.
Well, when I knew I'd be standing here, I thought some stories that I'd like to share that I think have relevance, not just to the event today of opening the museum, but also as Wausau looks down the road in the months ahead to welcoming additional refugee families to our community. And as many of you know, we're anticipating this fall to see the first refugees, perhaps from Afghanistan, will arrive. And I thought maybe there would be an apt time for me to reflect on that. And in doing so, I'd like to share a story that I think is kind of funny. And it has to do with the closing of Wat Tom Krabak, the unofficial refugee camp in Thailand. Unofficial because there were 15,000 Hmong people living illegally in Thailand at that camp following the closing of the official camp, Ban Vanai, and other camps in Thailand. Well, I heard in 2004 that the camp was going to be closed and that the Thai government was insisting that every illegal Hmong resident of the camp either find refuge in America, Australia, France, or some other country, or be repatriated back to Laos. And it was real clear that 15,000 people were going to be desperate for a new home. It also seemed to me logical that some of those people in the camp who had heard of Wisconsin might consider coming to our state. So I asked around city government if anybody in Wausau city government was going to go to the camp to let people know that they were welcome. Nobody stepped up. It was a great disappointment to me that nobody saw this as an opportunity to welcome more people to our community to join a thriving, successful Hmong community. So I thought, what the hell? I'll do it. So I had no official capacity. My effort wasn't endorsed. I doubt I could have gotten a letter from the city council, but I thought, well, I'll stop by the tourist bureau and pick up all the free literature about Wausau that I could. And so I packed a suitcase full of Wausau magazines, Wisconsin magazines, tourist literature, and I went to the camp. And I went from family to family, passing out the literature. And here you have a photograph of a family in the camp looking at, from the Wisconsin Department of Tourism, one of the official magazines. And the thing that I think is funny, I said, I think you get a good laugh out of this. The family looked at the magazine and said, Wausau. Ooh, they've got snow. That would be good. So here they are And we did end up getting about 500 people from the camp came to Wausau, and I crossed paths with those people. The second story I want to tell you is about a hospital in Vientiane, Laos, that has the only treatment center for victims of leprosy. Now, when I say leprosy, I know there are dozens of people out there who are saying to themselves, we don't call it that anymore. We call it Hansen's disease. Well, there was an attempt to condition people to stop using the term leprosy and to refer to that malady as Hansen's disease. Why? Because the word leprosy strikes fear in people's heart. And the fear of leprosy is so great that some people felt the only way we can give the victims of that malady a fair shake is to stop using the word. Well, today I'm going to use the word because it's important to the story I'm about to tell. I have to say I'm fearful of leprosy because I've met hundreds of people who are victims. And I meet them in the rural villages where I travel, where I work. And it's a horrendous disease. It's a crippling disease, a disfiguring disease. And in the hospital in Vientiane, there are many victims of the disease, usually in a very advanced condition, because people in the rural villages don't let anybody know that they even suspect they have it until their condition has deteriorated so greatly. They've lost eyes, they've lost fingers, toes, amputation of limbs, constriction of ligaments on their hands. And it's only when they're very desperate that they confide that they have the disease, and they're then usually driven out of their community. It really is almost medieval, the way in which people stricken by leprosy are treated in Southeast Asia. In truth, I know it's been confided in me that there are people in Wausau who have been successfully treated for Hansen's disease, leprosy, and living here, and they have a tough road to hoe. There's still a scorn toward that. But to get to the heart of my story, I decided the best way for me to confront my own fear of the people I would meet in the village was to spend more time with them. So I made it a habit when I was in Vientiane to go down to the leprosy ward and sit with people, talk with people, play checkers, and just spend time reconditioning myself. And I had two particular friends. Both were amputees. One fellow had severe contraction of all the ligaments in his fingers, claw-like hands. The other man had no fingers. One at a time, his fingers and toes had been amputated. One man had lost an eye. They were really horrific-looking, very pathetic figures. But I spent a lot of time with them, and it got to the point where I was able to just see them as just fellow checker players. On my last day of that trip, before I left for the airport, I stopped at a marketplace to pick up a gift for each of them. And all the time I had spent with them, over a matter of weeks, they'd always, each of them wearing the only T-shirt they each own. These were people with one shirt apiece. So I bought new shirts for them. And I looked, there was a pile of shirts of various colors. I thought, I'm going to get different colors so they don't look like Team Leprosy. I'm going to get them each one. So I approached them on the last day, and I said to one of the two, I've got something for you and your friend. Where is Pet? Where is Pet? Oh, he's taking a bath. I said, well, I just stopped by on the way to the airport. I can't wait for him to come back from his bath, but I got a shirt for each of you. I'd like to give you this shirt. And I handed him the gray shirt. I said, and when he comes back from his bath, tell him Mr. Jim said goodbye and give him this green shirt. And the fellow I gave the shirt to said thanks, but there was a look on his face that made me wonder, what's he thinking? I said, is this okay? He said, well, I wonder, could I take the green shirt? Can I take the green shirt? Oh, sure, take the green shirt. You know, that experience impacted me. You know, I thought, this is a man with one leg. This is a man with one eye. This is a man who can barely hold a spoon to feed himself. This is a man who was driven out of his village. What more could happen to this man? And yet, think about it. He had enough pride that he knew, I'll look pretty good in that green shirt. I want the green shirt. And, you know, all I could say is someday something's going to take me out. You know, will it be something takes me out fast, or will it be slow? Will it be a lingering death? What will become of me? But God, I hope, I always speak up for the green shirt. You know, I hope I have enough pride that I want that green shirt. And that's really what the museum is about, isn't it? You know, we say preserving our history, preserving our culture, sharing the past. It's also about pride. You know, I want all of our young people, I want all of you, I want our elders, I want you to go through life with enough pride in yourself that you will always speak up and go for the green shirt, always. The last thing I want to talk about, Marty and I stand here. By the way, everybody who I meet new, who hears about our work, always says to me, you got the best wife in North America, don't you? They know there is no way that I could do the capers that I pull off without the best wife in North America. In addition to that, we're an organization. We help war victims. It started the two of us. We don't have membership fees, you know, but there were the two of us. We said we help war victims. That's our organization. And then we got incorporated. And when we incorporated, we needed to have bylaws and a board of directors. And we have wonderful board of directors. Randy Colton, please stand up, and Ann Kiefer, two board members from We Help War Victims, who back us 100%. We do a lot of different things, but I want to call your attention to three things we do. One is the museum. And in addition to the artifacts that you're going to see today, something new we've never had before, we've now instituted a library. And I'm going to brag and say it's on the narrow range of topics of the Secret War, Vietnam, the CIA, the things that have a red thread that connect all those scholarly topics to the refugee families in our community. We've got the best library between here and Madison. And I'm cutting Madison a little bit of slack. I don't know that Madison has what we have. But when you come through, about half the library is there today, and the rest is waiting for more bookshelves. Okay, so we have the museum, that's one project. The second project I tell you about is our community gardens. Started with a couple of Hmong grandmas 20 years ago who looked lonely and depressed, and their families said, well, they just feel they've got no purpose in life. Marty offered them garden space. And so we had two Hmong grandmas starting to garden, and they told their friends. And so 20 years ago, we quickly went from 2 to 10 to 20 to 60 to 80. This year we have 108 gardens, all free, and it ain't about the food. It's not about the food. It is. We think we do something for food security, but there are a lot of people who feel really good about themselves, especially those elders who go home carrying baskets of food. People who feel, I'm a burden to my family. I used to feed this family, and now they feed me. No, after they leave Marty's Garden Project, they're taking food for their family. I have one more thing that I'm going to end with, but Marty has some things she wants to say about her work with Hmong elders.
He's not a bad guy either. Well, I was struck with your comments, Nao Zhuzhong, about the elders, and I don't want to contradict you, but I want to take a moment, whether it's with the gardens or the museum work that we've done in schools. I find that the elders continue. I mean, yes, I applaud the involvement of youth because they are our future, but without the elders' wisdom and experience and contributions, none of this would be where it is. You wouldn't be where you are, many of you. I have worked with an elder group at the Hmong, when it was the Hmong Assistance Association, and I've had elders in the classroom with me. Elders are the teachers. They are the holders of the culture and of the history of the Hmong, and they have made invaluable contributions. And I think the gardens where I spend, when Jim's in the museum, I'm out in the gardens in the summertime, and I see such wonderful intergenerational action and work and play. And when we started, Jim's right, when we started the gardens, it was elders. And as it grew, we saw more family members coming, younger family members. And now a good portion of our gardeners are second and even third generation Hmong Americans. And I value so much what they learn from each other, what they teach us. When we see people visiting the museums, it's really heartwarming to see grandparents taking their children and grandchildren through and being able to say, see, this is what it was like when I went to school in Laos, or this is how I fished to put food on the table. And in the gardens, the same thing. We received a beautiful thank you note several days ago from two gardeners, an aunt and a niece, who thanked us for making the land available because it gave them time that they didn't ordinarily have. But gardening together and working in the soil, they were able to share family history, time together, and to make memories. So my hat's off to all of the contributors and to the elders who teach us what they know. Thank you.
This is really shameless, but I'm going to close with a commercial. 12 or 14 years ago, a couple of reporters showed up at my camp. I spend 3 months every year in Laos with a bomb removal team. And the reporters showed up and asked if they could stay in the camp with me. Well, I'm the only English speaker in the camp, and for weeks and months at a time, I do get lonely. And so I allowed them to stay. Little did I know that over the years, they would return to follow the progress of our work. I said our We Help War Victims has three main thrusts: the museum and library, the gardens, and victim assistance in Laos. And they, a month ago, announced the premiere of a film that they cobbled together from their visits to me in Laos. And so it's a commercial. I hope that sometime this is either on PBS or maybe it'll be an opportunity to show it in Wausau. But if each of you could become an ambassador for the film, their hard work could see the benefit of people being educated about what's going on in Laos. We welcome all the Hmong refugees who came to Wisconsin, but remember, more people stayed than left. Today, there are thousands of Hmong living on the old battlefield in Sinquan. And I go to visit the family of Wausau Hmong residents, and I find widows, orphans, and amputees. So 3 minutes and 2 seconds, I think. Would you play this little blurb? Thank you all.
I am so delighted and honored to be here today, and you can imagine how I might feel right now following Jim and Marty Harris, but I'm actually very pleased to, because I can share, first of all, I can talk about them. They're so humble, but I can share one of the powerful influences this collection, this museum, and hearing about Jim and Marty's work had on me. and of course then celebrate the permanent relocation of the museum. I'll just reflect, I had the opportunity in early 2019, after having met Jim at a previous event where he was telling me a little bit, just gave me a little bit of a tease on the museum and his work in Laos. And I knew I was going to be traveling to Southeast Asia on an official delegation. Well, we went to South Korea and then we went to Vietnam. And I know that our focus was to be our responsibilities with regard to legacies of war. And I knew we were going to be looking at remediation of Agent Orange. I knew we were going to be talking about unexploded ordnance, et cetera. And I could not have picked a more perfect person to speak with and visit with before heading on that journey. That documentary obviously speaks volumes. And I found, because he's so humble, that I had to sort of pull out some of the stories about how they go about it. I wanted the details, how do you actually do this, and how long will it take for us to address fully the legacies of war. And the stories and pictures that you can see, I assume that the whole exhibit also shows what a cluster munition looks like, and the bomblets that it contains, and those that didn't explode that still are scattered throughout Laos. And the failure to be able to use one's land to grow and produce. The pictures of people actually gardening around a bomblet. Because that's the land. And the stories about what a difference it makes for a village. Has been waiting and waiting and waiting to have that team come in and rid the entire land of these unexploded ordnance. It actually inspired me upon my return from my meeting with Jim Harris and viewing the museum, and then my travels abroad, to introduce a bill called the Legacies of War Recognition and UXO Removal Act. This is a measure that would authorize $100 million in funding to support unexploded ordnance removal, and to provide funding, additional funding for victims of unexploded ordnance, or I guess exploded in the case, as you see, injuries, et cetera. The legislation would also recognize the significant contributions of the Hmong and other Southeast Asian veterans who served alongside Americans. So I want to thank both Jim and Marty for the work they've done as founders of the We Help War Victims nonprofit. And also, obviously, for this incredible collection of artifacts, arguably maybe the largest in the United States, that Wausau will be host to, thanks to the Hmong American Center's hosting and the grand reopening that we are celebrating today. I went a little off script, sorry about that, but I just, so powerful. So, from Laos to America, the exhibit both serves as a reminder and a celebration of the unique refugee experience. And it's so great to have such a strong and wonderful Hmong community. But we also, as noted, will and currently have other refugee populations. And it is a unique experience. Our state has a special bond with the Southeast Asian community as many of the Hmong people found refuge in our state after fighting alongside the U.S. in the Vietnam and secret wars. Today, as many of you know, Wisconsin hosts the third largest Hmong population in the country, following California and Minnesota. And it's for those reasons why it's so important that we continue to preserve these artifacts in our great state today. The museum serves as a place where folks can experience Southeast Asian art and culture, and it brings new focus to an area that many may not be familiar with. With every item in the museum conserved to retain their condition, this exhibit preserves history for generations and generations to come. Our history and the lessons we've learned without institutions like this could be lost. I want to also give word and name the pain and discrimination that refugees and Asians have suffered, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Asian Americans in Wisconsin and across the country have faced extreme forms of discrimination against them. Many of those echoed the same sentiments that too many refugees faced in Wisconsin when they first came to this state and this country. We must stand together in support of our Asian American and Pacific Islander community members and stand together against the rise in COVID-19 related racism, hate crimes, and violence. Exhibits like From Laos to America remind us of the importance of embracing diversity and all people. Today, the museum enters a new chapter, one with a larger presence that can provide educational opportunities to the larger Wausau community and frankly the entire state, so that we can all learn more about the refugee experience. It is my absolute pleasure to be with all of you here today to celebrate the grand reopening of a historic chapter in Wausau's Hmong history. Thank you. Can't wait to see it.
Aloha, y'all. My name is Erica Morrissey, and I am Deputy to President Joe Biden and the Asian American Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Senior Liaison at the White House. I'd like to begin by thanking Elaine and all of those at the Hmong American Center who made today possible. It's always a wondrous occasion when we're able to gather and celebrate the rich culture and history that makes the AANHPI community so special. And I'm humbled by this opportunity to speak at the grand opening of From Laos to America Museum. I'd also like to take a moment to thank and acknowledge Jim and Marty Harris, not only for their contributions to this impressive and extensive collection, but also for their heroic and humanitarian efforts in Southeast Asia. Your commitment to reconnecting families, helping return communities to safety, and supporting and uplifting individuals in their struggle and resilience in their journey from a war-torn homeland to America is truly remarkable. And today, your collection makes it possible for us to continue in your legacy of education and honoring the people, history, culture, and artifacts of Southeast Asia. Now, while part of what makes the broader AANHPI community so special is its diversity. This is a diversity that I appreciate as an individual with both Japanese and Chinese who was born in San Francisco, grew up in Hawaii, who has been deeply influenced by the best of both American and Asian heritage and traditions. But this diversity can also be a vulnerability, as demonstrated not only with the recent spike in anti-Asian hate, but the long history of injustices that our communities have endured here, including the Page Act of 1875, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, the murder of Vincent Chen, the mass shooting of Southeast Asian refugee children in 1989, and the targeting of South Asian Americans, specifically those who are Muslim, Hindu, and Sikh, after the national tragedy of 9/11. As Asian Americans, it is critical that our stories, from both times of hardship and celebration, are told. because these stories are essential to helping define our community, our country, and our future. The United States would be diminished without our voices and the stories of our contributions to its history. As President Biden says in his greeting letter to y'all, the American story includes the story of courageous families from every part of the world who ventured here, be it centuries ago or today, in search of the American dream. The From Laos to America Museum, Jim and Marty Harris collection, honors that story, the story of the struggle and resilience of Hmong and Lao refugees. By paying homage to their history, this collection connects the Hmong and Lao communities to their heritage and shares their story and culture with museum guests from across the globe. As you can tell from President Biden's statement, today I come to you as a representative of an administration that understands just how special and unique the stories, contributions, and meanings of AN and HPI communities are. That's why, from the very beginning of the administration, President Biden and Vice President Harris have been committed to finding opportunities to help AN and HPIs, as well as other communities of color, thrive. As we all know, the President and Vice President took office during the middle of a pandemic and during a dramatic and visible spike in anti-Asian hate. President Biden and Vice President Harris have been swift to address the disproportionate impact that these overlapping crises have had on our communities. On his first day in office, the President signed an executive order advancing equity throughout the federal government. In his first week in office, the President issued a presidential memorandum condemning racism, xenophobia, and intolerance against AN and HPIs to address the spike in anti-Asian hate and violence. And in March, the President created the role of the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Senior Liaison at the White House that I was selected for in April. In this first ever position, I'm a member of the President's senior staff, acting as the voice in the West Wing, lifting up the hopes and needs of the AN and HPI communities in our administration's policies, politics, and engagement. It's a new role charged with making sure that the richness and diversity of our communities are not made invisible, and that the impacts of this administration's policies are inclusive of and communicated to our communities. In May, the President signed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which includes the Jabara Hire No Hate Act, passed by an overwhelming bipartisan margin in the House and the Senate. With this new law, our nation is one step closer to achieving justice and safety for AN and HPI communities and all marginalized communities. President Biden took another important action in May by signing an executive order advancing equity, justice, and opportunity for Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. This order reestablishes and expands on the White House initiative on AN and HPI, along with its advisory commission, interagency working group, and regional network of field offices of our federal agencies. And among other things, it calls upon the Attorney General to support state and local agencies and AN and HPI communities in their efforts to prevent discrimination and expand data collection and public reporting of hate incidents. Now, I've spent my entire life as a professional and volunteer fighting for social justice and the empowerment of communities and individuals, and I'll continue to do that at the White House, executing and building on the President and Vice President's long-standing commitment to our community. We have the confidence of a President and a Vice President who see us, hear us, and value us. And we're committed to providing us with the safety and opportunity we should expect and can now hope for. We're almost 11 months into the administration, and the White House is committed to working with all segments of our AN and HPI communities. We're truly grateful for your support, and we'll continue to work hand in hand with all of y'all to find solutions to the problems and challenges that are facing us today. And maybe find some more opportunities like today to come together and celebrate too. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this space with you today. I hope you have an excellent time celebrating the grand opening of the museum. And I look forward to hopefully being able to visit and enjoy the wonderful collection sometime in the near future.
Thank you, everyone. I will try to keep my remarks as short as possible so that we can go on this tour here. But I just want to start off by saying that every day I like to compare myself to Jim Harris sometimes, and Jim and Marty Harris sometimes. And my good deed is opening the door for somebody, but Mr. Harris and Mrs. Harris, they're saving lives and providing medical care for everyone. So there's just no way you can compete against them at all. But I always try to, because they always make sure that I myself am become the best version of myself. I just want to acknowledge Mr. Colton, who was my third grade teacher, as well with Mrs. Kiefer, who was my recess aide as well too during when I was at the Western Elementary, and obviously Mr. Harris was my my elementary school principal when I moved to the DC area school district. So I want to acknowledge and also recognize them for their work in the We Help War Victim organization. If we can have them all rise up to be recognized, that would be greatly appreciated. I also want to use this opportunity here to thank the Hmong American Center Board of Directors for obviously supporting me in this initiative, this effort. If I can have all members of the Hmong American Center Board of Directors rise to be recognized, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Next, I would like to thank all of the volunteers who had contributed to this museum, whether it's spending time sawing tables, setting up cases, providing expert opinion on where items should be placed. If each and every single of all the volunteers who helped volunteer to make this museum a possibility, if you can all please rise to be recognized as well. I want to use this opportunity as well to thank the Wausau Opportunity Zone for contributing towards the CAM costs and operating costs of the museum. They are the reason why we are able to operate there almost free of cost. If the representatives of the Wausau Opportunity Zone could please stand up to be recognized, that would be greatly appreciated. Don't get too comfortable yet, Mark, because I want to thank the Compass Properties for waiving the rent for the museum and making it a possibility. I do want to acknowledge and thank them due to the fact that, as Mark mentioned, we had an incident earlier this year where individuals came in and where they were doing some work and accidentally damaged some of the case. But I was extremely humbled and thankful to Dave and also Mark at how quickly they responded and made sure that those items were taken care of as well. So I want to acknowledge Mark and the Compass Properties for helping us and making this a possibility. I also want to thank our wonderful MC today for being such a wonderful MC. She always does a marvelous job. Dr. Micey, if you can please stand to be recognized, that would be greatly appreciated. I also want to acknowledge all our elected officials. If I can have the representatives from the state, the Assembly and the State Senate, if you're here, please stand up to be recognized as well. If all county I would love the former county administrator and also the current county administrator to be to stand to be recognized as well. If all county board supervisors are those that are here present today, if you can please rise to be recognized, that would be great as well. And last but not least, I would also like to acknowledge all the alder persons and the trustees and the school board members that are here in person. I would love to acknowledge them. If they can all rise to be recognized as well, they'll be greatly appreciated. I see that Hussein's is sitting over there and he doesn't want to get up, but I do want to acknowledge him as well too for his work in the Hmong community. And last but not least, I also want to thank all our wonderful speakers, such as the Honorable Katie Rosenberg, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, State Treasurer Sarah Godlewski, Representative Francesca Hong, Lieutenant Nashua Hyung, Mr. Dave Ackman, Mr. Mark Craig, the Honorable Senator Tammy Baldwin, and the Honorable Erica Mortisugu for their work, and obviously also want to acknowledge Jim and Marty Harris for what they've done to make this a possibility. I did promise the White House that I was going to read the letter from President Biden, so bear with me here as I read that letter. As you can see in the booklet, you will see that there is a letter from the White House, specifically from President Biden. It goes, quote, "I send warm regards to all those gathered in Wausau to celebrate the grand opening of the From Laos to America Museum in collaboration with the Hmong American Center. Throughout our history, wave after wave of immigrants have enriched our nation and made our country more vibrant, innovative, and prosperous. The American story includes the story of courageous families from every part of the world who ventured here, be it centuries ago or today in search of the American dream. The From Laos to America Museum honors that story, a story of the struggle and resilience of the Southeast Asian refugees. The museum tracks the footprints of the Southeast Asian migration from a war-torn homeland to America by paying homage to their history. This collection connects the Southeast Asian community to their heritage and shares their story and culture with museum guests from all across the globe. As this museum opens, may we all recognize the strength that immigrants and refugees bring to our nation. May you continue to take great pride in your heritage and culture, the lives you have built together in America, and all the ways you have made and will continue to make America even stronger. Sincerely, Joe Biden." Before I conclude my remarks, I do have 2 copies of it, and I do want to give it to two organizations in the that has made it very instrumental. If Mr. and Mrs. Harris could please come, we're going to put this letter right in the museum, so just to acknowledge receiving the letter from the president. That would be greatly appreciated. Either Mr. Harris or Mrs. Harris. And it would be unfair of me not to also acknowledge our veterans as well. So if I can have President Osho also come here to take one of the letters as well. Now, this museum it's an instrumental and also very crucial component of Wausau. I know that Jim and Marty Harris, Mr. and Mrs. Harris, they've always been very instrumental in reminding me that the best way to get rid of racism and xenophobia is through education. And as our Lieutenant Governor mentioned, knowledge is the best tool to fight against ignorance. And I truly believe in that. This museum is another example as to is another tool that we can utilize to help educate and also provide opportunities for our community to come together, unite together, and learn about each other. Because it seems apparent, unfortunately, that when we don't know about each other and we're not comfortable with one another, we tend to fear one another. And out of fear comes hate, and out of hate comes anger. And because of organizations and the museums or efforts like this, it's crucial, not only for preserving the history, but also telling our story and allowing other individuals to remember and acknowledge and recognize the contributions of the Southeast Asian community, not just to the local area, but to the United States as well. Because the Southeast Asian refugee story is a part of the American history. And with that said, I will now conclude my remarks, and I will now ask each and every single one of you to join us as we go ahead and take a walk down to the museum. I would love for Mr. Harris and Mrs. Harris to lead along with the guests of speakers, and we can slowly follow Jim and Marty Harris down to the museum. That would be greatly appreciated. It is a little tight in there, so bear with us. And I hope all of you enjoy your time at the museum, and we thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. Thank you.